All right, welcome to Weekly Triage for Habitat. Today is Tuesday, July 16th. Looks like we have 3 issues to go through here, and then we'll review pull requests. Kicking it off with raising an error if building inside of Habitat. Okay, this looks like Jerry here's trying to, excuse me, do a hab. Our users are frequently doing hab package build on some path, and it fails because of the plan context. This is something we've, what do we have on here? Sorry. Matt, is this something that's come up with the path that you know about?
I mean, this is definitely something that comes up. It's hard to, it's hard to put like a blanket rule where it says we're just going to throw an error if you build inside a habitat. So like, there's all sorts of different scenarios that could play out here. So basically, from what I understand from reading this and from experience is, so you've got, let's say you have a plan that's inside of a habitat directory. Like, let's say you've got an application. You've got all your source code and whatnot, and then you have a habitat directory where you have your plan. Now, if you're in a studio, if you've entered a studio from the root of that plan, then you could do a build from that habitat directory, and everything should work fine. Where this breaks down is if the studio gets mounted at that habitat directory. So if you do a hab package build at that habitat directory, or if you do or if you enter the studio off that off of that habitat directory, all the studio sees is what's inside of that habitat directory. So if in your plan you're referencing source code that's like a level or two above or parallel to that habitat directory, that stuff just doesn't exist in the studio. And so what happens is, all sorts of errors get thrown because, you're trying to CD or to, grab files from a location that either doesn't exist or is not the actual location that you think it is. You're doing like a .. slash, which exists, but it's not the same .. slash that exists in the real file system outside of the studio. So, according to this issue, to say, I see that I'm in a habitat directory, I'm going to throw an error. I guess this is more complicated than it seems. So, like, the build system couldn't do that because the build script, it's really kind of somewhere at the studio level where I guess you would have to do that. And then you have to know, well, I've entered the studio at the habitat directory, and that might be fine. It just depends on what your plan does. And some like for example, a lot of the core plans don't have a habitat directory, but a plan like a core plan, where it's maybe just a plan file and it just simply downloads something off the internet, stashes it in the temporary directory, you'll be just fine in that case. It's if you try to navigate someplace outside of the studio, in which case you're going to get, if the file doesn't exist, you're going to get some kind of an error. I think the tough thing is just kind of that mental, being able to make the mental connection of like, why didn't it find my file, and being able to understand the mechanics of how is the studio mounting the directories. I guess maybe one thing we could do is just be more clear when we're creating a studio, like where that studio is getting mounted. I don't know. Yeah, it just, to me, like just having a blanket, I'm just going to throw an exception if I'm in the habitat directory. That doesn't seem like the right direction, but there's got to be a better way that because right now, like, yeah, it is complicated. You see users kind of fall into this a lot, and and it takes kind of like a little bit of mental gymnastics to kind of figure out like what's really going on here. So making that a bit better experience would definitely be good.
I just want to kind of echo what Matt said there, that this is, if we were to go down the road of raising an error, that'd be something that'd be very easy to get wrong and very hard to get right. And I think providing better context as to why you might be seeing an error is probably a better path. I want to take a quick look at, there's another kind of sub issue in this. In his follow on there, he mentions a habitat win directory, which is a pattern I've seen some people start to adopt if they have a service, or if they have a package that it runs as a service and supports both Linux and Windows. And so your lifecycle hooks would conflict with each other because there's no extension on those files. And kind of the reason I wanted to bring this up is that the habitat directory itself has meaning within the plan build, whereas habitat win doesn't have any meaning at all. And so I think it's probably worth visiting, like, how do we solve this in a way that users aren't having to invent their own patterns that exist outside of the build system. Does that kind of track with what you've experienced as well, Matt?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like that's definitely another problem. Like that's an even bigger problem in my opinion. You know, the fact that like we have to do kind of these hacky things to like make sure that the hooks don't conflict. Like we totally have to fix that, so that there's no need to have that habitat win folder.
Okay, I might flag this as needing more discussion, and feels like we should have some planning sessions around kind of usability inside the plan when you can't find something, as well as how we tackle that Windows issue.
Yeah, it sounds like the right thing to do.
I'll assign it to myself. What is your issue? Is that 6722? All right. Moving on. Inconsistent configuration behavior for macOS Habitat Studio. It looks like it inconsistently respects configuration values. It does not respect the builder URL value. So I think, Eric, you're just saying like he goes through have CLI setup, and then some of the properties are respected in regards to Studio, and some of them are totally ignored.
So the builder URL should be hab builder URL, I think. So that might be worth asking for some follow-up on that to just make sure that wasn't a typo.
Okay. 7, 2, 8. Let's see. So support have auth token. So you pull in have auth token, uses token. So with that. Okay, I just think if there's any other properties in here. Origin was not respected. Does that seem like a bug? Origin, I'm confused. Pull in all settings in Studio RC instead of in var or CLI toml.
So I think there might be some inconsistency with what gets read in from the CLI.toml into the Studio.
Okay.
It's been a long time since I've looked at that though, so but that sounds familiar.
All right, I will follow up with questions. And Eric again, more useful error messages for multiple Linux studios or supervisors. So if you try to start up 2 studios at the same time,
this is a duplicate of existing issues we have, I'm pretty sure.
All right. John, would you take the action item to find the dupe and mark it?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to pull requests, or yeah, sorry. Let me double check. Got builder, I forgot on-prem. Okay. The habitat, these are unassigned PRs and internal. It looks like they're all internal. This is on-prem builder. So a PR here to add OAuth. Sign up your role as an option. Anyone from the builder team here? It looks like there's a conversation going on, so I assume they have it. And then a community PR to allow us to allow making the product generic, so changing names within there. I know I talked to Salim about this earlier this week, so it's on his radar. And this is builder, that's internal. And then Scott, any PRs you want to call out for core plans?
Nothing new this week. We've got a number of PRs against the base plans open right now as part of the refresh that I'm leaving open until some of our newer maintainers have a chance to at least put eyes on it so they understand the changes that are going through. But we can expect this list to start going down in the next few days. And I think we're getting close to actually having the package set finalized. What we're waiting on now is we have to update all the Java versions away from the JRE JDK to either Corretto or OpenJDK so that we can actually finalize the refresh with all of our Java stuff still in place, since we can't distribute JRE JDK anymore. I think that's the last big blocker, and then the rest is just doing the work of building out all the packages.
Okay, and we will need to get some communication out relatively soon for refresh once we get a date figured out. So I'll be expecting that. Anything else for triage today? All right, thank you, everybody.